The Minnesota Timberwolves roster looks good on paper, but last year's first round exit and how they played in the past season left us with a lot of questions regarding the future. But one Allstar doesn't really fit in if the goal is winning a championship. Let's start with the pieces on place. Anthony Edwards, a 6'5", 225-pound shooting guard, is one of the most exciting young players in the NBA right now. His overall performance on the basketball court is really impressive, and he's already established himself as a dominant force in the NBA in just a few seasons. He was the top pick in the 2020 draft, whose class appeared to come loaded with talent. And as time has gone on, it's been proven that, for once, it was a very wise pick by Minnesota. The player showed a good scoring ability since his rookie season, but his efficiency was not the best. Meanwhile, during each of his 3 seasons in the league, Edwards has shown progress in every measurable basketball statistic. He increased his scoring per game in his second year and then again in his third year, along with his field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, rebounding, assists, steals, and blocks averages. Most importantly, he raised his scoring to a new level in the playoffs, going from around 23 points per game on league average efficiency over the past 2 regular seasons to over 28 points per game on well above league average efficiency over the last 2 playoff appearances.
Ant off the feed, and Anthony Edwards shows. He skips it to Conley, shot clock down to 3. Anthony Edwards steps into a 3.
And, well, the Timberwolves playoff runs weren't deep either of these seasons, which means it's a smaller sample size, but the fact that he elevated his game when it mattered the most is really promising. What's even more fascinating about Ant is that he does have the personality of a leader. He has not only shown us his leadership skills backed with top performances during his playoff runs, but he has also played a huge part in Team USA wins at the recent World Cup, sparking the attack with his explosive play and leading the team in points scored.
They're 1-2-2. Nice mix. Oh my goodness.
Edwards pull up for 2 and
The next piece of the puzzle is very controversial in the NBA scene, but he's still a good fit to Edwards. Rudy Goldbert, the 3 times Defensive Player of the Year, 3 times All-Star, 6 times NBA First Team All-Defense French big man, was traded from the Utah Jazz last summer. They gave up a lot of assets for Rudy Goldbert. 4 first-round draft picks, a pick swipe, and several quality players like Malik Beasley, the surprising rookie who had just been selected in the draft and had a great season in Utah, Walker Kessler, Patrick Beverly, or defensive specialist Jared Vanderbilt. That was the profit Utah got from a player who had already proven to have problems when it came to the playoffs and who had never made it past the second round. A trade package worthy of a superstar of the highest level. But that was Minnesota's gamble. Bringing in Rudy Goldbert was taking away defensive responsibilities from his teammate. It brought elite rim protection and rebounding to the team. All his contributions, added to the emergence of Anthony Edwards, seemed to indicate that the Wolves were ready to compete for everything. But once again, they were wrong. The player for whom they had traded away much of their future delivered an intentional hit on teammate Kyle Anderson that forced the team to put him away during the first round of the play-in. After another season in which they failed to clinch a playoff berth during the regular season, and subsequently, they were eliminated by the Los Angeles Lakers. But there was one player, the other part of Minnesota's Twin Tower, who was performing way below expectations. Karl Anthony Towns is the most controversial player of the Minnesota Timberwolves, by far. His history with the Wolves could make us believe he's a great addition and a good fit for the team, but that's far from the truth. The Wolves selected Towns as the #1 pick of the 2015 draft, a center who was capable of scoring from any position with good efficiency and who offered an offensive repertoire that's similar to that of DeMarcus Cousins. But Towns also had an incredible rookie campaign in which he won the Rookie of the Year award with averages of 18.3 points and 10.5 rebounds per game with an excellent 54% shooting from the field. Make no mistake, KAT is a tremendously talented scorer. and his outside shooting ability is very efficient with high volume of usage. He has good ball handling and is one of the few big men capable of creating a shot off the dribble. But he has flaws that a player of his salary can't afford. One of the most glaring is that he's arguably a soft player. Despite having great size, Karl often has trouble scoring in the paint against heavier players, a problem he's been suffering from since his early years in the league.
On both sides of the floor, the three-point shot they made at the end of the second quarter before the half.
Towns, shot clock down to 3.
On the post up, goes at LeBron, who chests him up. Now a double team trap.
There they are, leaving it for Karl Anthony Towns. #1 pick in the draft in his class.
Good defense.
Most of his career has been as a small forward. Now as a power forward, he is a...
And that forces him to lower his percentages by having to try very difficult shots from further distances. While he's not exactly a slow player, he's not quick enough to beat most players at his position in the first step. And this ability is very important for the big man scorers who have more technique than athleticism, such as Dirk Nowitzki or Pau Gasol when they were young. But this aspect is not a problem, at least not as much as his defense. Towns is a player who tends to get distracted on this side of the court, and whose instincts are not exactly those of a defensive specialist. There are plenty of actions that prove it, like this one. Taj Gibson is doing a terrible defensive balance, and Towns has to occupy the paint to prevent Ibaka or Siakam from getting an easy basket. Karl doesn't recognize the fact that his teammate Gibson is out of position, and even having Siakam or Ibaka in his line of sight, he's not able to realize that he has to back up to prevent an easy basket. Or this action, where after switching on the screen and staying with Kawhi Leonard, a new 6-foot-tall Kyle Lowry screen that catches him by surprise prevents him from defending the Raptors star. Or this other action, in which the player flashes after a screen very far from the rim for a very long time, and causes Lowry to get connected with Ibaka for an easy basket, to the despair of Derrick Rose. These are just a few old examples of Towns' biggest flaws, which also become more noticeable when coaches adjust in the playoffs. And that's the reason, coupled with his high salary, that the Timberwolves are almost forced to make a decision on his departure. The Timberwolves has a huge problem. And no, not all of the responsibility for Minnesota's continued failures over virtually the last decade comes from Karl Anthony Towns. But the player has not shown the quality to become a key player. And as of the next summer, his 4-season, $220 million extension will take effect. But even if not all the responsibility is his, nor Rudy Goldbert's, their very high contracts are an impediment to the team's proper maneuverability in the near future. Having an overpaid starting five means, in most cases, a deficit in the bench. And if one thing is clear in today's demanding NBA, it's that bench players are necessary to compete with the league's elites. Redirecting the team around Anthony Edwards seems like a common sense decision. His season-over-season improvement shows signs that the player can become a true superstar in the NBA. And Towns' departure would give the shooting guard even more of a role on the court with the ball in his hands. Edwards has been able to put Team USA on his back during the World Cup that's being played right now besides his youth, and in which the American team should be the favorite for the title. A player who has shown that he's capable of elevating his game and that of his teammates on the biggest stage, and who has also shown remarkable improvement in areas of ball handling and playmaking. It is likely that the Wolves will not recoup the full value of the investment they made for Goldbert, but the truth is that KAT remains to this day a very high market value, perhaps higher than his real value on the court, but it is clear that an exit could also benefit his game. In a new role and with a new offensive system that allows him to showcase his skills, will it happen? Only time will tell. But as long as things don't change, the Wolves are going to have a tough time in a Western Conference where many teams aspire to fight for the playoffs.